Information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Well, I know we've heard it before, but I feel like this time is going to be different. Just before the Thanksgiving holiday, it would appear that President Trump has once again done the unthinkable. Unthinkable because many people thought that the war between Ukraine and Russia was going to continue on forever, just as wars in the modern age typically do. But it would appear that President Trump has successfully put together that 28-point peace plan that has been agreed to by both the Russians and the Ukrainians. And now all it's going to take is an in-person meeting with President Trump and all of the parties. And yet again, you have another war that President Trump successfully ends. I think just the other night we were talking about this on OnlyLands, I believe. And the idea was that President Trump is going to give the American people something to discuss around the Thanksgiving table. Once again, another war successfully brought to a conclusion only by President Trump. I simply cannot fathom how people on the internet can look you straight in the face and say that President Trump is just like all the other neocons, extending forever wars, when he's the only person who has quite literally brought to an end 9 conflicts now. So what I need from you, hit that like button, help us out by sharing the show, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to get into it right about now. Well, my friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I think any day that President Trump successfully brings to an end a global conflict where tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of men, women, and potentially children have lost their lives senselessly, essentially ending the stranglehold of the military-industrial complex, which of course is a breeding ground for human trafficking, child trafficking, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, and black book operations being run by NGOs and intelligence companies and intelligence agencies alike. It is a good day. Today, we have something to celebrate. You might say we've got something to be thankful for, as it is almost Thanksgiving. And that's where I would like to open the show today. But before we do, I just want to give a big shout out to the first sponsor of today's program. That's going to be my friends over here at onenessdrops.com. onenessdrops.com/redpill78, where you'll get 15% off your entire order, no matter what it is that you choose. But they are known primarily for their chlorine dioxide water purification kits. Chlorine dioxide is a substance which will allow you to make clean, fresh, potable drinking water from otherwise unpotable sources. You can take dirty water from a puddle or a pond or a river or a stream. You can add the chlorine dioxide and it'll take care of all the creepy crawlies, all the bacteria, all the viruses, all the nasty pathogens that might be existing in there. Also, if you're not somebody who's typically going and getting water from puddles in the middle of the woods, or you're not going to have an opportunity to take it from a mountain spring where you don't know if perhaps upriver there may be some source of heebie-jeebies that might be polluting that water, you might just want to have it around the house because you never know what's going to happen. Occasionally, down here in Florida, we've had boil water advisories, or we've had instances where the water quit working because maybe there's a hurricane and things get shut down. But this way, you can always make clean, fresh, safe-to-drink drinking water by having chlorine dioxide on hand. They also offer a number of other things, including their mullein extract, which is for lung health, and then their soursop extract, which is for cellular regeneration, and of course their DMSO. Now, if you want to know the finer points or the way that DMSO works or the way chlorine dioxide works, you can go to my website, redpill78news.com, click on the news section, and inside that news section, you'll find 2 blog posts dealing with these 2 subjects specifically. And of course, they also have added value where you can get bundles, and you'll get a discount for the bundle, and you can also still get the discount by using my code REDPILL78. Thank you so much to them for being a sponsor of the program, and I also want to give a big shout out to Bowler Jack Bryan, who says, happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for being the best news source. Bowler Jack Bryan, thank you so much for the support. I really do appreciate that $50 Rumble rant. Also, thank you to Ina over on Pilled, who drops a cookie and says, good afternoon, and thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you as well. Now, one more quick message before we get into everything here. Do have a brief message from our friends over here on Rumble and Zippix. Zippix, you guys, this episode is also brought to you by Zippix nicotine-infused toothpicks. They are a satisfying, discreet, and great-tasting way to curb your cravings anytime, anywhere. Perfect for flights, events, restaurants, or any place where vaping or smoking might be banned. Zippix allows you to satisfy both your nicotine and your hand-to-mouth cravings with 6 long-lasting flavors. They come in 2 or 3 milligram strengths. Proudly made here in the USA, and it's one of the most cost-effective options out there. If you're not into nicotine, then you can try the caffeine or B12-infused toothpicks for an additional boost. Zip more, smoke less by visiting zippixtoothpicks.com. Plus, you're going to get 10% off your first order if you use the code CREATOR, but you got to be 21 or up because, warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. You can also use the QR code that you see on screen right there. Thank you very much to Zippix for being a continued sponsor of the program. All right, now let us begin today by talking about President Trump and the White House's annual turkey pardon ceremony. Here we have the turkeys for this year getting pardoned by President Trump. Of course, it's a kind of a comically hilarious little get-together. First Lady Melania Trump and the president looking regal as ever. President Trump also mentioned that because the pardons for the turkeys last year were signed by Joe Biden's auto pen, he was officially invalidating those pardons, but then he immediately gave pardons to those turkeys. He said they actually intercepted the turkeys when they were on their way to the slaughterhouse because they were no longer pardoned by Joe Biden because they never actually were pardoned by Joe Biden. But he put a stop to it, and he made sure that those turkeys were able to live their best life. You got to love the sense of humor on this guy. Let's go ahead, take a look.
Just asked if they
It's like a rather violent bird.
A rather violent bird.
Are you ready? Gobble.
There you go.
I just want to.
Very important. You are hereby unconditionally pardoned. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Beautiful.
Beautiful bird.
Nice. Who would want to harm this beautiful bird? That's good. That's good. Thank you very much. Fantastic.
Who would want to harm this beautiful
Thank you
bird?
very much,
I love
everybody.
President Trump. I mean, he's a pretty good-looking turkey. Pretty good-looking turkey. And I just love it that President Trump was petting it. It looks like they might have had a microphone on the breast of the turkey as well. Just so much fun. Anyways, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope you guys all have a lot of plans for yourself and your family. We've got my son and his girlfriend on his way here right now. Lisa's picking them up from the airport, so they'll be here with us throughout the weekend. We also have an update on the story that we've been covering, which is, of course, at the heart of it, the investigation of Adam Schiff and his mortgage fraud, perhaps his election fraud as well. There was a rumor going around that the DOJ investigators in the state of Maryland were actually investigating Bill Pulte and Eagle Ed Martin. Now, yesterday, we saw that Ed Martin had replied to Chad Mizell. Chad Mizell said, this is the wrong take. What's actually happening is that the investigators are doing their job. This is not something most people are used to seeing. Instead, the FBI and the DOJ under past administrations would just choose a target, and then they would basically arrest them and railroad them through the legal process. But in this instance, they want to make sure that every bit of information and all of the evidence they have to convict Adam Schiff is going to be properly obtained, and they can actually trace it back to exactly where it came from. So Chad Mizell said the investigators are still investigating Adam Schiff. They're just doing their due diligence. Now, another source, a second source, which is also coming from within the Department of Justice, has backed up what Chad Mizell said and also what Ed Martin said. Ed Martin said, I can't comment on an ongoing case, but I can tell you that Chad Mizell knows what he's talking about. So, Todd Blanche is alleged to be overseeing this particular investigation. That is coming from two sources with knowledge from inside the Department of Justice. Now, allegedly, because those sources are talking to MS Now, formerly MSDNC, they are saying that Todd Blanche has grown concerned about unforced errors in Justice Department investigations, and that's why they are claiming that this extra level of investigation is taking place. But again, according to both Chad Mizell and others within the Department of Justice, there's nothing unusual happening here. They just want to make sure that they really do get the opportunity to convict Adam Schiff, because this criminal referral has all of the evidence that is necessary to indict him. Bill Pulte did nothing untoward, nothing improper. Eagle Ed Martin did nothing improper. We've looked at bank records and documents and property records from over the last 16 years in order to put together this this criminal referral for the indictment against Adam Schiff. The pattern of behavior is there, just in the same way the pattern of behavior was there with Eric Swalwell, or more to the point, AG for the state of New York, Letitia Pkwy James. So this Department of Justice employee has also confirmed that the take that people are giving with the investigation being focused on the good guys is absolutely not correct. DOJ is not investigating their own. They are getting ready to drop a bomb on Adam Schiff. That is a direct quote from someone with knowledge inside the Justice Department. Now, Just the News is also reporting the exact same thing, that the Justice Department is not investigating their chief pardon attorney, Ed Martin, or the housing regulator, Bill Pulte. Instead, they are going through a grand jury subpoena process, which has been designed to secure all relevant documents about Adam Schiff's mortgages, about Adam Schiff's money trail, about the origins of all of this. And as such, they need to speak to every single person who has direct knowledge that could be helpful in this probe. Now, the reports that are sort of prompting the story about Adam Schiff not being investigated were made by the revelations that came from Christine Bish. Now, Christine Bish is somebody who has been tracking Adam Schiff's mortgage fraud and election fraud for many, many years. She's an activist in California. She had previously filed an ethics complaint against Adam Schiff because allegedly he illegally claimed that two different homes in two different states were both his primary residence. And as all of you should know, you definitely know now, but you should have known before if you've ever had to buy a house, you can only claim one home as a primary resident. So Ed Martin and Bill Pulte are not being investigated by a grand jury. The subpoena that Bish received is all related to documents relevant to the Adam Schiff mortgage fraud investigation. Chad Mizell, it is worth noting, was fired from the DOJ earlier this year, but it appears that that Chad Mizell doesn't have any bad blood. He is the one who is suggesting that Adam Schiff is definitely in a whole heap of trouble. Now, Eric Swalwell has responded to the criminal referral against him as well for mortgage fraud. And rather than responding by legal means to this particular case, he has instead filed a lawsuit in response to Bill Pulte's actions. That should probably surprise no one. Eric Swalwell, as I reported yesterday, is not going to be able to run for governor of California. At best, he would not be able to even consider holding that position for another 5 years because he would have to move back to California. And, of course, he's got to go where he can get some type of win. Now, this lawsuit is coming, it looks like, perhaps against Joel Gilbert as well, because Joel Gilbert is the one who really broke this story wide open. He's the one who went through Eric Swalwell's mortgage records and determined that he had the same type of behavior as Letitia James and Adam Schiff. And then he's the one who handed over all this information to Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte. And he has made a number of other referrals against high-ranking Democrat officials who have been involved in the exact same type of crime. Again, Adam Schiff and Letitia James. So there is really nothing unusual happening here. And Eric Swalwell is merely trying to deflect from the crimes that he knows that he's guilty of. And the First Amendment is allegedly what Eric Swalwell is claiming was violated when Bill Pulte filed these criminal referrals against him. As I said, Eric Swalwell announced a run for governor last Thursday, and now he files this civil lawsuit against Bill Pulte, alleging there are violations of the Privacy Act and the First Amendment. In the lawsuit that Eric Swalwell filed, and even though the mortgage data is online and we covered it here, it's widely available, Eric Swalwell claims that the referral from Bill Pulte is not based on the laws that he broke by fraudulently making statements of his residency or his domicile. No, it's in fact based on politically motivated misuse of government databases. So this also makes me believe that the story that we had about Adam Schiff not being the subject of the investigation and instead Bill Pulte and Eagle Ed Martin being the subject of the investigation, this could likely have been a coordinated op between Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell getting together ahead of time and saying, we'll go ahead and start this fake news rumor, put it out there, we'll have our top deep state reporters cover it, and then I'll file a lawsuit against Bill Pulte in a civil court. I will allege the same thing that we have already leaked to the media. This is the very definition of a wrap-up smear. So Swalwell claims that Pulte used his records to concoct fanciful allegations of mortgage fraud, which he referred to the Justice Department for prosecution. He goes on further to say in his lawsuit that Representative Swalwell explicitly disclaimed any intent to occupy the District of Columbia home as his primary residence in a sworn affidavit that was attached to his mortgage agreement. That affidavit made clear that the home would be his wife's primary residence, not his own. However, doesn't really matter what you say in an affidavit that is attached to other sworn declarations of residency. I would imagine that there's also probably other statements that were made in relation to the insurance and then, of course, for the mortgage itself. In the deed of trust, which again is a sworn declaration, there is no language whatsoever even remotely similar to what Eric Swalwell claims is in this alleged sworn affidavit that was attached to his mortgage paperwork. And in Eric Swalwell's paperwork, there is the property listed, which he actually swears will be his principal residence. There is no affidavit to speak of. There is no additional rider. There's no email or written statement indicating that this house was exclusively for the principal domicile of his wife. And there's nothing stating that he himself would not be living there. So both Eric Michael Swalwell, which is his full name, and Brittany Watts Swalwell, as we reported several days ago, are listed jointly as the borrower, and they both jointly signed the deed of trust. Now, the only affidavit that they sign pertains solely to DC tax classification for a residential property. So At the end of the day, the mortgage contains no disclaimer from Eric Swalwell that anyone has been able to identify, and there is no rider or language assigning the home to his wife alone. But for all intents and purposes, they appear to have borrowed the money together. They appear to have signed the origination documents together. They appear to have both sworn and attested to the fact that this home was their shared primary residence and that they own it together. This lawsuit is basically an attempt to deflect from what is undoubtedly an incoming indictment for the crimes that we've just laid out. And of course, Eric Swalwell may be looking to use this lawsuit as an advertisement for his political campaign, however fledgling and however short-lived it may be. In that lawsuit, he states the very first sentence: "Since taking office, President Trump has engaged in unprecedented efforts to leverage the power of the federal government to seek retribution against his political enemies." Then it goes on to say, the past decade, Representative Swalwell has publicly and vigorously opposed the president. So he's clearly trying to draw this narrative thread that the only way that these criminal referrals might be put forth against me is not because I actually broke the law, not because I signed and swore attestations to the fact that I was going to be a primary principal residence of the District of Columbia and not my home state where I was elected to lead an entire district. No, it's only because President Trump wants to get me, because I have always been a thorn in the side of President Trump. Now, this lawsuit is, of course, filed in federal court in Washington, D.C. Eric Swalwell is seeking damages, and he's also seeking a court order which would direct Bill Pulte to withdraw the criminal referral. Well, we'll see how that goes. I think that it will all become moot if at some point in the future, before anything is decided in this lawsuit, the DOJ puts forth a grand jury and actually indicts Eric Swalwell on mortgage fraud charges. Now, what's also interesting here is that Sam Antar addresses Eric Swalwell directly because, again, a lot of this information came from the work that Joel Gilbert and Sam Antar did together. Sam says, Eric Swalwell, your lawsuit claims you explicitly disclaimed any intent to occupy the District of Columbia home as your primary residence in a sworn affidavit attached to the mortgage agreement. Joel Gilbert, who has written a number of articles on Swalwell, Schiff, Letitia James et al., he has actually reviewed the deed of trust. This supposed affidavit does not exist in any form on record that Joel Gilbert can identify. Again, there's no disclaimer, there's no affidavit, there's no rider, there's no handwritten note, there is no language which refers only to his wife, and as I already stated, he and Brittany are both listed on the mortgage documents and on the deed as the co-borrowers and co-owners. The Privacy Claim Act is apparently DOA as well, Antar says. Gilbert's investigation used public deeds of trust from D.C. land records, and even if Bill Pulte accessed Fannie Mae systems, 12 U.S.C. 4617b2 would explicitly authorize it because he is, of course, an agent of the federal government, and he is providing oversight of the housing authority. This is the same mistake Abby Lowell made in defending Letitia James, Sam says. Filing documents the underlying records disprove. So here's my question, Eric Swalwell. Where is the affidavit? Produce it. And if you can't, you just made a false statement in a federal court filing. Your move, and I got to tell you, I think that's checkmate. Eric Swalwell, Letitia James, Jim Comey, all these people are so used to controlling the justice system. They are not used to having this system used against them. And so they are just anticipating they're going to be able to get away with this. But the evidence is unimpeachable. It's very clear. We've seen it. We've talked about it. We've exhausted it. Now, if this isn't bad enough, Eric Swalwell has also had a voter complaint that's been filed against him with the California Secretary of State. This is now going to put him in legal jeopardy on the other side of the country where he is elected to represent his district. So let's take a look at this voter complaint form. This is filed by my man, Joel Gilbert. So what does it say? They list Joel Gilbert's address because he is a resident of the state of California. They give his email address and the persons or organizations against whom the complaint is brought. That would be Eric, and then also his gubernatorial campaign, and the alleged events that have occurred. On November 20th, 2025, Swalwell declared himself a candidate for California governor, even though he is disqualified. All across the United States, people witnessed Swalwell's declaration as a candidate for governor. Describe your complaint. Eric Swalwell declared himself a candidate for California governor, even though he was constitutionally disqualified due to his primary residence mortgage document in Washington, D.C. The state of California Constitution and Election Law 349 require a candidate for governor to be domiciled in California for 5 years prior to the election and for California to be the domicile during that time. Of course, as we know, Eric Swalwell does not meet those stipulations. So the complaint is that Eric Swalwell is constitutionally disqualified from running for the governor of California. Should be interesting to see exactly how the state of California is going to deal with this now. In addition to the complaint itself, Joel Gilbert includes all of the evidence that they handed over to Bill Pulte, which of course is used in the criminal referral that's been given to the Department of Justice. And all of this information proves exactly what Joel said and what we've been talking about. Eric Swalwell is disqualified from being able to run for governor in the state of California. So I'm interested to see how Rob Bonta deals with this and how the Secretary of State in California deals with it. Certainly, I think that it's probably not going to make Gavin Newsom too happy. All right, now, we also have new information in the case of Democrats who received money from Jeffrey Epstein. Now, we knew previously that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer was one of those people who had, in some form or another, received campaign contributions from Jeffrey Epstein. Well, FEC records have been dug up to show that Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted child sex trafficker and a convicted sex offender on the registry, at least up until the time that he passed away, is on record as having donated $22,000 to Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. And Chuck Schumer had said that Trump should answer for his friendship with Epstein, including $7,000 that went direct to Schumer campaigns and then another $15,000 that went to political action committees that were tied to Chuck Schumer. I would say that it's Chuck Schumer who has to answer for his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, Donald Trump never received money from Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't falling over himself to donate to President Trump or anybody else in his orbit. It would appear that all of the donations, again, were going to Democrat-aligned candidates. So what's up? What gives with that? I don't anticipate we're going to be getting any answers. All of the Democrats have shut up. They have stopped talking about the Jeffrey Epstein situation. And hopefully there will be more details coming out in the near future, which will make things even more difficult for them. Now, Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth has once again addressed Senator Mark Kelly, one of the seditious six. And this time, Pete Hegseth calls him out for improper dress uniform. Mark Kelly, in response to the investigation and threats of having him recalled to active duty so that he could be court-martialed, had posted this tweet right here. He says, "When I was 22 years old, I was commissioned as an ensign in the United States Navy, and I swore an oath to the Constitution. I uphold an oath through flight school, multiple deployments on the USS Midway, 39 combat missions in Operation Desert Storm, blah, 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 blah." He's got a resume. But what's important is the picture here. Now, I wasn't in the Navy, okay? I don't know how these things are supposed to go. Is there anybody out there who is military, who was perhaps commissioned or became an officer, or who has a stack of medals like Mark Kelly does? I would assume that Mark Kelly should have had all of the knowledge necessary to present himself in a manner that is befitting his station. But apparently he doesn't. Pete Hegseth replies and says, "So, Captain Kelly, not only did your sedition video intentionally undercut good order and discipline, but you can't even display your uniform correctly. Your medals are out of order and the rows are reversed. When or if you are recalled to active duty, it'll start with a uniform inspection," which seems to indicate that Pete Hegseth himself is going to make sure that Mark Kelly is dressed properly for the rank that he holds. Now, let me say thank you so much to Mr. A. Nelson for going a DoorDash order to support Zach, eating healthy tonight, and said, "Mr. A. Nelson, I really do appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for that generous support. Really, really appreciate it." And also, let me say thank you to Dill Durius, who says, "Pilgrims discovered America." That they did. I can totally get on board with that. Anandoc77 says, "I am wishing you and your family a happy Thanksgiving." Happy Thanksgiving to you as well, Doc. And No Thanks Joe says, "Thanks, Lisa and Zach. I'm not sure if you will be on tomorrow or not, but if not, thank you for all you do, and I wish upon the happiest, healthiest, and safest Thanksgiving that I can. God bless you both. Love you. Love you too. Thank you so much for that." Filter Dog says, "Turkey comes." That's right. I'm not exactly certain whether or not I'm going to be on the air tomorrow either. Like I said, we've got family coming into town. Certainly not going to be on the air on Thanksgiving itself. Is today Tuesday or Wednesday? Today's Tuesday, isn't it? Yeah, today's Tuesday. We'll see. I'll let you know if I'm going to go live tomorrow. Probably not, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, all this stuff is kind of thinning out. But also thank you to Aviator AH64, who says, "Happy Thanksgiving. We are thankful for this #1 news source." I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right. So Mark Kelly is still in the doghouse, and it's not just Mark Kelly. It would appear that the message that this is the seditious six sent was just waiting to be received by people who could make a difference. Now, Sam Shoemate is his name. He came into prominence, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, after that Tesla Cybertruck explosion in front of the Trump building in Las Vegas. Because this guy had somehow been in contact with that guy, allegedly. Anyways, he says the seditious six would be proud as they see their efforts produce these kinds of results within the ranks. Apparently, there's a woman who is an Army JAG officer. It says M.A.J. Baker, is that Major Baker, has been very vocal about her dissension on social media for months. And now she's publicly stating she will not comply with lawful orders that she disagrees with. HQDA 175-25 is in reference to those with gender dysphoria and their disqualification from military service in the Army. This is an order that is lawful that she is stating publicly in a text message or email conversation to her superiors that she is not going to comply. So you can see here there is an email which is sent from this woman, Rebecca Baker, and it says, regarding involuntary separation under HQDA XORD 175-25 unclassified. And she says, "Good evening. This was sent yesterday. Just chiming in to say I give 0 Fs about this arbitrary deadline on an issue that has been outstanding for months. OT-JAG is already tracking our potential involuntary separation, as we had a conversation with them months ago. If you feel the need to comply with this order, please don't involve me, Rebecca." And she must have posted this on TikTok or Instagram or something. She says, "You thought I was kidding. Let's effing go. Not part of the regime." And of course, she is making mention the Trump regime in her mind. Now, someone replies to her and says, "Rebecca, I encourage candor, but as I'm sure you know, your response is inappropriate. I will discuss this with you further separately. And she says, "Looking forward to it. Also, two can play this game." Now, in another message, she replies, she says, "Sure, but as I told you months ago, I won't be part of this process, so not sure why I'm still included in these emails. Have one of your other cronies do it." Again, Any military people out there, if you were receiving messages like this from a subordinate, what would you do about it? Certainly, they have thrown people in the brig and court-martialed them for a lot less. But Miss Rebecca Baker appears to have some type of special... Did you get my Word docs? I got emails from you, but I have been so slammed the last couple of days, I haven't had a chance to reference or look at any of them. And Wounds R Us, I also got a ton of emails from you about the local candidates. I think a couple of people sent them, but the last couple of days have been hectic. I had to give blood this morning, and I had an interview scheduled, so you're seeing me basically where I've been all day. But let's go ahead and see if we can look up Rebecca Baker. We got Rebecca Baker. See if we can find anything about her. Army major refuses to aid gender dysphoria separation emails. This is her right here. Okay, so it looks like people are just sharing Sam's tweet without any additional information. But there is a picture that's associated with it. Meet Major Rebecca Baker. This is from October. She's a JAG officer with the 8th MP Brigade at Schofield Barracks in Hawaii. Here's what she reportedly posted publicly on social media about the commander-in-chief, another radical leftist in uniform. And this is her Instagram right here, Rebecca Joe 428, proud demonic maniac, radical lunatic, thug vermin scum garbage here in response to President Trump. And then she shares this. Also, it takes a special kind of audacity for a VP who advocated for mass firings of people over their posts about Charlie Kirk to go on the Charlie Kirk show and claim that adults who are practically the same age as him are too young to face consequences for their violent rhetoric. I don't know what they are referring to, but she says this 0% accountability and 100% hypocrisy. Is this her? No, this is somebody else. But either way, I hope that Rebecca gets court-martialed because she deserves it. Also, G. Fontes says, I just got here and don't mean to screw up your lineup. But yes, I did know about this, and we are going to talk about it in just a moment. So I will not reveal the rest of your message because I've got it queued up. All right. Also, in relation to the Seditious Six, it was announced today that the FBI is now in the process of scheduling interviews with those 6 lawmakers who encouraged people like Rebecca Baker to not follow the orders of their superiors. The FBI and the Justice Department have actually already reached out to the Capitol Police to schedule these interviews with those 6 members of Congress. That would be Senator Alyssa Slotkin, CIA, Senator Mark Kelly, Representative Chris DeLuzio, Representative Maggie Goodlander, Representative Chrissy Houlihan, and Representative Jason Crow. They said in that video, our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders. And we all know they didn't bother to specify any possible example of illegal orders or any illegal orders that they thought it plausible President Trump might suggest they follow. And I am looking forward to seeing what the FBI and the DOJ determines. As we know, Senator Mark Kelly, he can be addressed in the military court. But the rest of those people, they would have to be addressed through the regular Department of Justice route. This video was politically motivated to create dissent among the ranks and to effect the sort of outcome that we saw with this young woman, Major Rebecca Baker. I'm certain that there are probably a lot more people just like her. I just don't know that they're stupid enough to post publicly on social media or to reply to their superiors and say, I give 0 Fs about the order that we're being asked to implement. No, I did not donate blood. I did not donate blood. I had to give blood for samples for my yearly physical. So the doctor took my blood, several vials of it. No, I don't donate blood. I don't like anybody sticking needles in my arms. I get sick when it happens. I can't stand it. It's like the worst possible thing that I can imagine. And I only do it if my doctor demands that I do it. Okay. So, let us continue here. We've actually got a statement from Mark Gallegos. He is the junior senator for Arizona. We saw his video kind of going ape about this yesterday. And I said at the time, I wonder why Mark Gallegos didn't do the video. Well, it actually turns out he was in an earlier version of the video. And he also directly tells us that this was a well-planned and executed episode because they had a script and they passed it around. It went through numerous variations and they went ahead and filmed it. And he just says that he wasn't present for the final filming.
Did you consider, why were you not part of this video?
Yeah, actually, so I was part of the first video. The second video is by the time the script got to me and it was in the middle of a lot was going on, I just didn't have time to actually record it, but I'm 100% in alignment with them altogether. This stuff happens. It just happened not to end up being a recording. There's really no other 3D chess to this.
The logistics of human life.
Yep.
He had no idea how to even respond to that. So I think that this makes it look worse for them because, of course, as we had stated immediately after this video came out, they may have used very carefully crafted language. However, the intention behind that language is what matters most of all. So considering that we now have confirmation there was a script, there was an organizing party, there were conversations that were going on behind the scenes, it's likely that during the course of this DOJ and FBI investigation, we're going to get an opportunity, or perhaps they will get an opportunity to look at those communications to determine what it was that these individuals had as an intention when they were putting this video together. All right, now, continuing, we have from Lee Zeldin a response to Senator Ed Markey. Now, if you take a look at this comment from Ed Markey with a letter addressed to the Honorable Lee Zeldin, you might think to yourself, wow, why is the Trump administration withholding funds for the replacement of lead pipes in the state of Massachusetts? That's what Ed Markey is alleging. He says the EPA is sitting on critical funds for lead pipe replacement, leaving communities in Massachusetts at risk. I'm leading the Massachusetts delegation in demanding the immediate release of these funds. No child should drink dirty water. Well, gosh, nobody wants kids to drink lead-poisoned water because it's going to get into their brains and make them slow. Of course, this is reminiscent to what happened in Flint, Michigan during Barack Obama's administration. Think about all the money they put into Flint, Michigan. Guess what? They never fixed the lead pipes in Flint, Michigan. And Lee Zeldin, of course, as the director of the EPA, he's got the sauce. He says more confirmation Massachusetts does not send their brightest to the U.S. Senate. Anyone want to guess how much Massachusetts has spent out of the $155 million in lead pipe replacement funding that it's already received from the EPA since the start of fiscal year 2023? Zero, nothing, zilch. If Ed Malarkey wants the EPA to release any more funding to Massachusetts for lead pipe replacement, he will have to tell his state to submit a plan to us ASAP on how it is going to spend what it's already received previously and is still sitting on. The Trump EPA isn't messing around when it comes to total accountability of precious U.S. taxpayer dollars. Can you believe this? This disingenuous sack of malarkey, sending out a public letter, putting out a tweet, trying to impugn the character of Lee Zeldin and the EPA and President Trump, make it appear as if the Trump administration doesn't care about little kids getting lead on the brain, when the truth of the matter is they've taken this $155 million, and I would not be surprised if it turns out they've spent it on all kinds of other things that have nothing to do with lead pipe replacement and probably a lot to do with the housing, feeding, and benefits for illegals and perhaps even lining their own pockets. I guarantee you, Ed Markey is going to be unable to put together a plan because that money doesn't exist anymore. If they received it for fiscal year 2023, that was 2 years ago. They've had 2 years to begin addressing the problem that the federal government said they were going to help them pay for. And rather than addressing that problem, they have instead chosen to do nothing. And now they want more money? No, not going to happen. Not going to happen on our watch. At Agaratos says Gallegos equals Gallego. Gallego. Okay, not Gallegos. Okay, just Gallego. Thank you. TZ Burton says, here's for unbuttoning the trousers after enjoying a fine turkey dinner. Going into a food coma while watching the Detroit Lions. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. A good deal of bots spamming that Tucker BS. So Lisa is driving, and I am, there we go. I can get rid of O'Connor because I see that one right here. I'm just going to put everybody on notice. If you're a bot and you're in here dropping links to some fake Tucker Telegram or a blog or something like that, you're going to get banned forever, and you'll never be able to come back here again. Frosty18, don't worry. My doctor has no power over me. The blood work that I do once a year is due to my advanced age. I'm 47 years old, and I personally like to know where all of my markers are and what's going on. I got a lot of things to pay attention to. I'm at that age where I got to get prostate exams, so I'm just trying to make sure that everything's good. There's only so much that I can tell from my own abilities. But getting the blood work gives me just a little bit deeper insight into what's going on. Okay, and continuing here, my doctor's totally based anyways, guys. They know I don't get vaxxed, and they like watch the show and stuff, so they're cool. They're cool. All right, now, great news. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about how the Vindmans were suspiciously left out of Joe Biden's pardon spree. In fact, the wife of one of the Vindmans went on Twitter and said that she was totally devastated that she wasn't included in all of the deep state swamp rats who had been essentially offered safe haven inside the D.C. sewer system. Of course, we came to learn later on that it didn't matter because many of those pardons were signed with an auto pen, so they're totally without any merit or power. But the Vindman brothers are now under federal investigation. Look at this. Representative Eugene Vindman and his twin brother Alexander are now reportedly under investigation for illegally acting as paid brokers for U.S. defense firms who were seeking business in Ukraine. Pentagon General Counsel Earl Matthews alleges that Vindman and his twin brother Alex never got the necessary approval from the U.S. government before seeking to act as paid brokers for American defense firms that were pursuing contracts with Ukraine after Russia's 2022 full-scale invasion. That's actually being reported by the Washington Post. And it comes from a letter written by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth on November 19th, indicating to the Vindman brothers that they are being investigated. Hold on. We got another one dropping the fake links. Yes. Okay. We'll get rid of them too. I never thought to check my vitamin D levels because I actually just have a vitamin D supplement that I take, and I spend so much time outside. I have had vitamin D levels checked in the past. They've never been outside of normal ranges, even when I lived in Michigan and Ohio. But, yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff that I pay attention to. So Representative Vindman said in an interview that he was being investigated for, I believe, violations of the emoluments clause is what it is. Now, the letter does not explicitly allege that the Vindmans received money from the Ukrainian government, but we actually do know that one of the Vindmans had a position within the Ukrainian government even prior to the war beginning in 2022. So at one point, he must have actually been receiving money from the Ukrainian government. Just don't know if it was for the transfer of arms. But it does mention that they did not insulate themselves from the requirements of federal law. Now, Eugene had actually posted something about this investigation to his X account on Friday. He said, of course, it's politically motivated. It's in response to his calls for the White House to release the transcript of a recent call between President Trump and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Instead of transparency, I was met with retaliation, Eugene Vindman says. However, the Trump administration has signaled that they may investigate since way before Trump actually took office. If you'll remember, last November, Elon Musk had accused Alexander Vindman of treason. Alexander was the one who kicked off the impeachment hoax. Eugene, I believe, was working on the National Security Council at that time. Now, Vindman is on the payroll of Ukrainian oligarchs and has committed treason against the United States, for which he will pay the appropriate penalty, Musk said in November. Now, here is that ever famous tweet from Rachel Vindman. It was actually a Blue Sky post. She said, "Whatever happens to my family, know this. No pardons were offered or discussed. I cannot begin to describe the level of betrayal and hurt that I feel." It was Politico who revealed in 2023 that Alexander Vindman is heading a group called Trident Support. That group, Trident, wants to send American military contractors to fight in Ukraine. And according to documents, Alexander, who is, of course, of Ukrainian origin, is seeking $12 million for his project. He wanted $2 million for initial operating capability and then another $10 million for full operating capability. Now, the scheme such as this might not be illegal, but it does demonstrate that the Vindman brothers are war profiteers. They are the exact same type of deep state warmongers that we seek to get rid of here in the United States. They benefited from the escalation of the war in Ukraine. And even though they were born there, they apparently only had one loyalty. It wasn't the government of the United States. It wasn't even the government of Ukraine. It was the almighty dollar. They were looking to get paid. Now, before Joe Biden left office, Alexander's wife posted that message that we saw on Blue Sky about how she felt so hurt. But she may feel even more hurt in the very near future when or if it turns out that her husband and her brother-in-law get indicted. I wonder if anything's going to happen to her. How much did she know and when did she know it? Thank you so much to Ann BMW 2003. She dropped a ship and says, "Thank you for being a true warrior. I really appreciate you." Mayatua dropped some shades. Thank you for that. Do appreciate you as well. And Emerald Dragon says, "Zach, be careful with prostate exams. I've heard some doctors will put both hands on your shoulders when they give you the exam." Hold on. Have you guys ever seen Fletch? When he goes into the doctor, he's pretending to be the patient, and he's like, "Okay, bend over." And he's like, he bends over and he's talking, and then he's like, "Moon River." And he's like, "You using the whole fist there, doc?" I used to think that was so funny when I was a kid. All right. We also have a new report dealing with exposure of government corruption by the O'Keefe Media Group. This just came out earlier today. This time, we have a U.S. Government Accountability Office director admitting that he and GAO staff stole and backed up vaccine data that was allegedly deleted by RFK Jr.'s people at the HHS. This is a possible violation of federal records, theft, and CFAA laws. His name is Stephen Putansu. He's been working inside the U.S. Government Accountability Office for 16 years. He is currently an assistant director, and he revealed to his date, as they always do, getting honeypotted, that he did something really bad. He admitted on hidden camera that he backed up and stole this federal data to keep it outside of the control of HHS and RFK, violating a number of statutes in the process. And, of course, he also mentions that if anybody catches him, he is going to go to prison, and he's also going to lose his job. Let's take a listen. This is a good one. And also, Fletch lives from G. Fontes. That is correct, sir.
I work for the Government Accountability Office. I'd watch out for the vaccine denying head of HHS. who's going to ruin healthcare in this country even more than it already is.
Are they doing anything to stop him?
We are, in some places, administration has gone through and they've destroyed statistical agencies, data source outlets, and they've not really deleted important data. And we have, stolen and backed those things up. So that somebody can come back to the government. And so I know if they ever find a way to get me, I'm gone. Hope nobody figures it out.
Well, it doesn't look good for the
Famous last words. Wow. I absolutely love watching these people get caught literally with their pants down, because that's what they think is going to happen. They think that they are going to impress some random girl off of Bumble. Some 10 chose this schlub, this pale, he looks like a glass of whole milk with pubes on his face. Thinks he's going to get his rocks off by admitting to having committed federal crimes in service of the resistance. He is standing up to the vaccine deniers, and he thinks he's going to get a handy out of it. But the only thing he's going to get is picking up the soap in prison.
GAO, the Government Accountability Office. This is James O'Keefe. Back from the field undercover in Washington, D.C., the very office, GAO, supposed to hold the government accountable, is now the one in question.
It limits the amount of permanent damage because, research on vaccines and things that he is basically trying to just delete are stored outside of his control. I want us all to be afraid to say whatever, but inside the agency, we all are pretty firm. The way GAO survives is to continue to do good work.
The U.S. Government Accountability Office, known as GAO, been around since the 1920s. Their purpose is to oversee and have oversight over government spending, very similar to what DOGE recently was supposed to be doing. So the OMG undercover journalism team met with GAO to find out what they are actually accomplishing.
What do you do again?
I work for the Government Accountability Office. So
For the government what?
Accountability Office.
Okay. I remember you saying it's similar to Doge.
Not really, but it's like what Doge pretended they were doing. They were going in and finding places where they could save money or fix government, except really all they were doing was cutting business.
They're pretty much doing what you do
Yeah.
without the research.
So, yeah, we do the research to see what works and what doesn't. We make recommendations. We can't force our recommendations to be implemented, but they usually are because they're backed by good evidence.
Meet Steve Putansu. Now, Steve, a 16-year veteran at the U.S. Government Accountability Office and lecturer at American University, opined that GAO is stealing and preserving vaccine data that RFK and HHS has deleted, a very move that could possibly violate federal law.
Oh, all kinds of federal law. And wouldn't you know it, James O'Keefe and the good folks at O'Keefe Media Group were kind enough to leave us the references to those very specific federal laws. Let me also give a big thank you to Life in the Way for another $100 Rumble rant. You guys, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. They say, thank you, Zach, for all your hard work doing what we just don't have the time to do. I appreciate so much that you're here, and thank you very much for supporting this channel. Thank you for supporting the work that I'm doing. I really do appreciate you guys. And again, I feel great about where this country is going. Let's take a look at the laws that, what was his name? Stephen Putansu has broken. Unauthorized removal or destruction of public records, 18 U.S.C. 2071. You can also throw in their theft or conversion of government property, 18 U.S.C. 641. And might as well get the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, CFAA 18 U.S.C. 1030, for accessing or copying government data without authorization. Back to the clip.
Watch out for the vaccine denying head of HHS, who's going to ruin healthcare in this country even more than it already is.
An unelected bureaucrat, a career civil servant who believes he knows better than the cabinet level choice of the man we elected to be president of the United States. This is the perfect encapsulation of everything that is wrong inside the federal government. This is what needs to be stripped out down to the bone.
Kennedy? Are they doing anything to stop him?
We are in some places, and I mean there's resistance everywhere, right? Administration has gone through and they've destroyed statistical agencies and data sources, and they've not really deleted data, and we have stolen and backed those things up, so that someday they can come back to government.
How so?
Because we had access to them, so we just keep happy. We're limiting the damage. We're finding places where he's violating law, which then can make him force him to stop violating laws to the extent that he will let us.
Has he violated the law yet? Has the court backed you guys up?
Yeah, that's one of the actually. So GAO got threatened with a 50% budget cut next year because of something called the Impoundment Act, which is basically. Impoundment is if the president takes something Congress appropriated. Congress had spent $1 million on this, and the president says, "I'm not spending it." That's called impoundment. It's illegal. So GAO is required to determine if any changes to spending qualify as impoundment, and we've hit him, I think, 3 times on it, and they're like, "You're political now. You're just trying to destroy, the
His
Republican
movement.
Party." And so therefore, we're going to slash your budget to punish you for being political. I don't want us all to be afraid to say whatever, but inside the agency, we all were pretty firm. Like, the way GAO survives is to continue to do good work.
We consult.
Now, continuing to do good work in his mind is mutiny. I see it in the chat. This is the resistance standing up to President Trump. Again, the elected leader of the United States of America, the choice of the people to implement his agenda. I believe that the GAO is one of those agencies that should simply be canceled, strip them out, get rid of them, because this is not isolated. This is happening all over the federal government. This is why it's so vitally important that we fire as many people inside the federal government as possible.
Will Chamberlain here in Washington, a senior counsel at the Article 3 Project. According to Chamberlain, this director at the U.S. Government Accountability Office committed violations of 3 federal statutes.
My name is Will Chamberlain, and I'm senior counsel at the Article 3 Project and the Internet Accountability Project. What this strikes me as very seriously and very clearly a violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which prohibits intentionally accessing a computer without authorization or exceeding authorized access to obtain information from a U.S. government department or agency. That's precisely what he did. He is not at HHS. So if HHS wants information on its own servers deleted, he doesn't have the right to purloin that information from HHS. That also could easily be a theft of government property, which would be a violation of 18 U.S.C. 641, and also the unauthorized removal of public records under 18 U.S.C. 2071.
Again, I've just returned from the field here in Washington. I'm in a hotel room after confronting a couple people who've done naughty things. We have undercover people everywhere. Sometimes you wouldn't even suspect who. And this is why we do the type of journalism we do, to shine a light on people like this who are bragging openly, brazenly about the crimes they are committing. And you can always email us, tips@o'keefemediagroup.com. 914-491-9395 is the message on Signal. That's 914-491.
I'm just going to say it again. If you're a guy who looks like this and you work at the GAO, well, hold on. I'm going to have to go back this way. If this is you and you work at the GAO and a perfect 10 matches with you on Bumble or Hinge or Tinder or wherever, or they just walk up to you inside some seedy little backroom DC bar and they tell you how funny and how smart you are, it's probably a honeypot. But I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, also, we have an update on that situation with that Florida judge, David Baker. Julie Kelly has found some additional information out. David Baker was the retired Florida judge who was tasked by D.C. Chief Judge Jeb Boasberg to handle the magistrate duties in Washington, D.C. He's the one who signed off on the NDOs for the warrants on members of Congress. Now, Julie says, I had suspected that Boasberg's predecessor, Beryl Howell, they were both appointed by Obama, had done the exact same thing. And wouldn't you know it, on April 12th of 2022, Beryl Howell, handling the grand jury proceedings in D.C. for both criminal investigations into President Trump and the defendants on January 6th, is the first one to onboard Baker. And apparently now he lives in Connecticut, according to this paperwork. He was asked to work remotely on the judicial emergency in D.C. Howell, of course, made it sound legit that Baker would be handling foreign requests. We don't exactly know what that means, and any other dire criminal matter. But it was only 2 weeks later that Baker signed the gag order on the DOJ subpoenas for Jim Jordan's phone records. And they claimed that the NDO was needed because if they didn't get the NDO, Jordan would flee from prosecution, that he would run from the country, even though he's a sitting member of Congress, or he might destroy or tamper with evidence or intimidate witnesses, a lot like what Hillary Clinton's campaign did when they were under investigation for her private bathroom email server, which was unsecured and contained special access program intelligence, classified and top secret material that directly led to secret operatives around the world losing their lives. So we will see just how many other NDOs Baker signed on members of Congress. As I said initially, I would be very surprised if the ones that we learned about initially were the last of these secret NDOs. We're probably going to find that anybody with an affiliation with the Republicans was likely being spied on, anybody who could have potentially had contact with President Trump. All right, now we also have a clip here from a brand new interview between FBI Director Kash Patel and Catherine Herridge. Now, Director Patel is specifically addressing the burn bags that were discovered in Secret Room 9582. And in his comments, he seems to indicate explicitly that this is not just an issue with Jim Comey. This also likely ties in Christopher Wray. We don't know how far back it goes, but the practice of using Room 9582 just might have been going on for quite some time, if not directly during the time of the last 10 years. Let's go ahead and hear what he has to say.
Let me ask you, when you learned about the discovery of the 5 burn bags here at FBI headquarters, what went through your head?
Shock. Unbelievable shock that not just one director and his leadership team, but multiple would have information that's supposed to be secured. Some of it's classified, but I mean secured for purposes of record-keeping purposes, to keep up with federal statutory requirements, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. And instead, they were deposited in bags listed for destruction. So that was very disturbing. Just that in and of itself, putting aside whatever was in there.
The burn bags were found in room 9582. That's a secure facility. I'm told by former agents that it would have some sort of access system or a key card system. Does FBI leadership have a good idea who put the burn bags in that room?
We do.
You know for sure, or you have a good universe of suspects? You know who put the burn bags there. What was the intent?
Okay, so the people who did that are going to be criminally liable. And the fact that they've identified them, and we haven't learned it yet, in my opinion, is because that information will be used for indictments. It's not just going to be used for a press conference or to get a headline or to have a snarky tweet that goes out owning the libs. This is going to be used in the proper way, as it should, and it will likely come into play in the various federal grand juries, which are convening currently down here in the Southern District of Florida. So that's my opinion. We'll see if I'm correct.
Of the person who put the burn bags in room 9582, was it to preserve them to be discovered later or to make sure they were destroyed?
Excellent question. And this is something that I have been speculating on myself.
Well, those are the questions we're answering for the public and for this investigation, because not only are we not in the business of not exonerating people, but we're in the business of taking our investigative findings and working with Congress to say, look, even though we did not or did reach a legal conclusion on the matter, this is of such public importance in terms of the weaponization of government that happened, people like President Trump were targeted, including myself, and more senators that we just revealed thanks to this FBI's work in uncovering not just the burn bag, but other material related to Arctic frost. What we want to do is find a public forum to display that information, and we believe that until our investigations conclude, we will be limited in what we can produce.
It sounds to me like you know the answer to that question.
I do.
That's what I thought. Okay. A highly classified CIA
like
referral containing intelligence about the 2016 presidential election was also discovered here at FBI headquarters in a storage closet adjacent to the FBI director's office.
Now, this is different from room 9582. This storage closet adjacent to the director's office is the type of location that only the director would likely have had access to. And it was probably stored there, in my opinion, so that it could be easily accessed if, for some reason, they needed to get it, they needed to destroy it. But otherwise, there are laws dictating the maintenance and keeping of records like this. So theoretically, you could hide it someplace, spirit it away so that you know where it is, nobody else knows where it is. It's classified in such a way that nobody can find it. And then if for some reason it must be produced at some point later on down the line when it no longer matters, well, then it can, and you haven't technically broken any laws.
How many FBI personnel had access to that storage closet?
That's part of this ongoing investigation, and because we are working through that, I don't want to disclose the number of folks or even who had access to it, because that goes to your other question on who put it there and why did they put it there, and were there any instructions associated with them depositing that material in these rooms.
Instructions. Now, instructions indicate that perhaps they were directed to do that. Now, either way, whether it was for purposes of exposure at a later date, there would, of course, be instructions. If it was for purposes of burying and hiding, obviously, there would be instructions as well. But certainly, no matter which path this is going to go down, either one would lead potentially to indictments for people who did illegal things.
Am I correct? Based on my reporting, it is a very, very small universe of individuals who had access to that storage closet.
Very small.
Very
small. Is it in
small.
fact only one?
It's very small.
Only one. That could potentially be the director and the director alone. My goodness, okay, I think it was a great interview. I haven't had a chance to watch the entire thing, but that was like the favorite clip that I saw out of that. Okay, anyways, looking very, very anxiously to see what happens. Now, I'd also like to go down the other route, which we have suggested on this show before. Let's say that this material was known about, perhaps from President Trump's first administration. And there was a plan to ensure that those documents never left the FBI headquarters, but were kept in such a way so that they could be retrieved at a later date by a friendly administration, i.e. President Trump's administration. I think that's entirely possible, too. And that would be part of the direction that Kash Patel was pointing to. Let me say thank you to Q Patriot Angel. She says, I'm going to take a guess as to the reason why those burn bags were found this year was because no one was in D.C. the last 4 years. Have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Been a great 8 years. Cheers to the next 11. Amen. That is entirely possible as well. I don't know how many agents were actually working on site, but that's certainly an aspect to it, an aspect of it I had not yet considered, just by virtue of the fact that maybe there wasn't many people that were actually working physically in the office. But that is a great thought. Let me see. Tony, thank you for being a Canadian and hanging out with us here. Also, thank you to 4D Starks for gifting 10 subscriptions to the viewers over there on Rumble. Really do appreciate you, buddy. Say thank you to him. Let me also say thank you very much to Dread Quarters, who says, Lego my ego. Porpoiseful, who says, thank you for all your great work, Zach. Thank you, my friend. Sean Joe, thank you for the can, the cookie, and another cookie. You, sir, are a scholar and a gentleman. Thank you very much. All right, now, I thought it was interesting that this interview was released, and there was also some reporting from MSDNC, now MS Now, indicating that the White House is preparing to fire Kash Patel. Now, I have seen this narrative coming from others in the past, even others on the right, people who I believe are hostile actors. They are bad people who have been inserted into the sort of truther community, the right side of the aisle, and they love to talk smack about Kash Patel, love to say that he's not doing anything. They don't work at the FBI. However, they have an opinion about everything that happens at the FBI, and their opinion is not always correct. But the White House actually responded to MS Now's reporting, which said President Donald Trump is considering removing Kash Patel as FBI director in the coming months. Let me also remind you, a couple of months ago, the same group of people that I am alluding to, they were also passing around the rumor that Dan Bongino was going to be leaving the FBI. That never happened. Dan Bongino responded and he said, I'm not going anywhere. What are you talking about? I don't think Kash Patel is going anywhere either. Continuing here. As Kash Patel and his top aides, President Trump and his top aides have grown increasingly frustrated by the unflattering headlines Patel has recently generated, according to 3 people with knowledge of the situation who requested anonymity in order to speak freely. People who will not be named are people who cannot be trusted. In my opinion, these could very easily be those former employees of the FBI, or they could just be 3 fake sources that MS Now has made up from whole cloth. Where are the unflattering headlines coming from? They would be coming from a garbage fake news mainstream place like MS Now. Does anybody here really think that President Trump cares what kind of garbage headlines are produced on a website like MS Now? I guarantee you that he doesn't. He looks and he laughs. Continuing with MS Now's narrative, Patel has come under scrutiny for his stewardship of bureau resources, including his girlfriend's security detail and his use of a government jet, and for his squabbles with other Trump loyalists. Trump and White House aides have confided to allies that the president is eyeing removing Patel and is considering top FBI official Andrew Bailey as the Bureau's new director, according to those 3 anonymous sources. Patel is described as being on thin ice, and his ouster appears closer than ever. This reads like fan fiction. With Bailey as the logical replacement, 2 of the sources with knowledge of the situation said, though Trump could change his mind in the weeks to come. And of course, they leave it open just in case nothing happens at all. But the White House spokeswoman, Abigail Jackson, responded directly to MS Now and said President Trump has assembled the most talented and impressive administration in history, and they are doing an excellent job carrying out the president's agenda. FBI Director Patel is a critical member of the president's team, and he is working tirelessly to restore integrity to the FBI. Caroline Leavitt also commented, and she said that this story is completely made up. In fact, when the fake news published, I was in the Oval Office where President Trump was meeting with his law enforcement team, which included FBI Director Kash Patel. I read the headline to the president and he laughed. He said, "What? That's totally false. Come on, Kash, let's take a picture to show them you're doing a great job." Caroline ends by saying, "Do not believe the fake news." You can actually see right as she posted that, she shared the photograph that President Trump, and Kash Patel took at the moment that they read the headline. And here is Kash and President Trump right in front of the Constitution. The Declaration of Independence. And, of course, they also retweet along with the fake news story from MSDNC Now. One Ohio Gal Now says, "Happy Thanksgiving, Zach." Happy Thanksgiving to you, too. Thank you so much for the $20 Rumble rant. And thank you to Kitsko. Kitty says, "Happy Thanksgiving, Zach and Lisa. You should take time off with the family because nothing is happening." All lies, but take the time off if you can. I appreciate you, Kitty. Thank you so much. And thank you again for the golf clubs for Lisa, so now we can go golfing together. I appreciate you. All right, we also have an announcement. Kash Patel and Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner did a press conference earlier today, and Scott Turner announced something incredible. It is essentially a toll-free hotline so that you, as an American citizen, can report illegal aliens and any other criminals who might be living in public housing. Let's take a listen to Secretary Turner.
We do believe that public housing should be safe. We believe that, and that's our conviction. A safe community starts with safe housing. If the housing is safe, the community is safe. And we want to take good care of the most vulnerable people in our country. And that means making sure that residents in HUD-funded housing can live their lives in peace and security, free from the horrors of violent crime. That's why HUD today we're announcing a new HUD crime hotline to allow the residents of public housing to call the HUD office of the Inspector General, the OIG, to report criminals, illegal aliens, sex offenders, human traffickers, and those guilty of gang activity, drug distribution, and fraud. We're spearheading this hotline right here for the residents of Memphis, Tennessee. This crime hotline is the latest in a series of action HUD has taken to help the American cities and neighborhoods be safe, including of those who live in HUD-funded housing.
I love it. I love it. Make it easier for the American people to turn these criminal swamp dwellers into authorities. These people have no place in polite and civilized society. All right, before we continue, I have one other brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. Did you guys know that 75% of the Nobel Prize-winning ivermectin that helped save millions during the pandemic is primarily made in Asia? Well, not the wellness companies. Introducing American-made ivermectin. It's safe, trusted, and produced right here in the USA. For more than 30 years, ivermectin has shown a proven ability to eliminate parasites, and new research also points to potential benefits for skin, immune, and cancer support. Most pharmacies charge $5 a tablet, but the wellness company is offering a higher 18-milligram dose for only $3.33 each. You'll get a 6-month supply designed for 4 21-day cycles, all at an unbeatable price. So get your U.S.-made ivermectin today by scanning the QR code or head to twc.health/rumble and use that code RUMBLE to save $30 off, plus get free shipping. This is available to U.S. residents only. Thank you very much to them. All right, and continuing, moving on from Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner, we also have a story here coming from New York. This is going to kick off a section about fraud in a variety of states. Speaking of illegal activity, here in Kathy Hochul's New York, we have a set of young men who were using your tax dollars through a program that Kathy Hochul had initiated called the SNUG program. This is a program which connects former criminals with young people on the streets to make sure, ostensibly, that they don't get involved with drugs and crime. But the only problem is the people who were running the program were doing the exact opposite. They were actually caught dealing drugs, engaging in criminal activity, basically turning these kids into future criminals. And they were even carrying weapons on the job, which, of course, they were using to protect themselves as they were dealing drugs and committing crimes.
Just blocks from the Southwest Community Center, where they were paid to keep young people away from crime, prosecutors say Ahmed Abdi and Cassian Pitts were doing the opposite, selling cocaine and meth while on the job, working as SNUG outreach workers.
And they're accused of doing this on the clock.
Yes.
And now both men have taken plea deals. Pitts will spend 9 years behind bars.
Mr. Abdi pled guilty to 2 different offenses.
Abdi will serve 6.
One of the most troubling things about Mr. Abdi's actions here is the abusive position.
These sentences closing out a year-long investigation and uncovering new evidence. News Channel 9 obtained this video showing Abdi stepping out of a car, walking to another, getting inside, and making what prosecutors call a hand-to-hand drug deal with a confidential informant.
It's honestly crazy, right? Because if I were to just tell you these words, you're like, this isn't happening, this isn't occurring, this can't happen. And then you see the video, and you see the bright orange vest. You can't miss that bright orange vest, and you're like, man, it's actually happening in our city.
Then later, more video shows Pitts and Abdi driving together. The senior assistant district attorney on the case, Alphonse Williams, walks me through what we're seeing.
And as you can see, Mr. Abdi's driving. He has the exact same outfit on, and Mr. Pitts is right next to him wearing this bright orange vest. It's a little discomforting, to say the least.
Snug, which is gun spelled backwards, hires credible messengers who are often people with criminal histories to connect with at-risk youth and help keep them off the streets.
This is a state-funded program, and these are taxpayer dollars at work.
It's a model long supported by Governor Kathy Hochul and funded with millions of state dollars.
This is an important program because I know that it works. I want to continue investing in what we know has a track record, a proven track record of accomplishment.
A proven track record of accomplishment, proven track record of in validating your own mission and bringing children into a life of crime, drugs, prostitution, gangbanging, terrible, terrible shit. All right, now we are going to jump to the story from Minnesota, which is going to probably piss you right off because it pissed me off, and it certainly pissed off G. Fontes. Let's go back to his tweet here, or excuse me, his Rumble rant. He says, did a judge really overturn the Somali 7.2 million fraud conviction in Minnesota? Also wishing you and yours a fulfilling Thanksgiving. I wish you a fulfilling Thanksgiving as well. And yes, it is true. A judge in the case of one of the individuals. Remember, there's been over almost 80 that have pled guilty. This one did not plead guilty. This one was, I'm sorry, this is that the Feeding Our Future. That was the one where almost 80 pled guilty. This is about the Medicaid fraud scheme, which we spoke about. It's completely separate. It's just a different form of fraud that these Somalis were engaging in. But this guy did not plead guilty. He fought the charges, and the jury found him guilty. $7.2 million in Medicaid fraud he and his wife were engaged in. And even after the jury looked at the evidence, deliberated, and then found him guilty, the judge in Minnesota, Sarah West, threw out the jury's guilty verdict. Now, this is going to be appealed. In fact, I believe it already has been appealed. But I think that this judge needs to have a careful look taken at her. Let's look at the local reporting. Everybody who is not the judge is up in arms about this. They can't believe that this happened.
A big reversal in a $7.2 million fraud case in Hennepin County. The judge has thrown out the jury's guilty verdict. This is a case Lou Raguse has been following since the beginning. The judge's actions could make it harder to prosecute state fraud cases in the future. Lou?
Julie, it's extremely rare for a judge to reverse a jury's verdict in a criminal case. Jurors I spoke to today told me it was not a difficult decision to find Abdi Fattah Youssef guilty in a Medicaid billing scheme, and they're surprised by this development.
At the August trial for Abdi Fattah Youssef, the jury heard evidence that he ran his home health care company Promise Health out of a mailbox at a Central Avenue where multiple other home health care companies were supposedly located.
Okay, so let's start there. You've got like a dozen or more home health companies that are operating from the same address. There is no physical space. It's merely a mailbox, and there are no employees. The only employees that I'm aware of were this man and his wife. All right. I don't even know about any of these other companies, if these were companies that were owned by other Somalis or if these were all companies that were owned by Youssef. But through that one company, $7.2 million in Medicaid fraud was derived. Elise says, happy Thanksgiving, Lisa, Zach, and Muffin. Don't forget about Chi-Chi. Don't forget about Chi-Chi. But thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. So how in the world is it that this was an actual business if they didn't have any office space, if they didn't have employees, if you've also got all of these other companies which appear to be fraudulent operating out of the same freaking mailbox?
Yusuf and his wife, Lowell Ahmed, were charged with stealing $7.2 million of taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistant or PCA scam. The couple allegedly spent tens of thousands of the fraud money on luxury items for themselves. Despite the jury swiftly convicting Youssef, Judge Sarah West last week decided
a liberal white woman. Hennepin County is extremely liberal. So not particularly surprised, but I am aghast because this type of decision made by the judge is literally unprecedented. This is not something that you see generally speaking. And her rationale for throwing out the verdict, it makes absolutely no sense.
Cited they got it wrong.
It's reversing or overturning a jury's verdict.
Defense attorney Joe Tamburino, who's not affiliated with this case, reviewed the decision and analyzed it for KARE 11 News. He says Judge West ruled that the state's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and that she believed the state did not rule out other reasonable inferences.
What reasonable inferences could you gather from a company that had no office space or other employees and likely would have been using money that was meant to be spent on patients, but was instead spent on luxury items? I mean, what was their other source of income except for ripping off the Medicaid system?
In fact, there could have been other reasonable theories other than guilt in this.
But no reasonable theories were presented by the judge, only the possibility that a reasonable theory might exist. I mean, certainly the legal team for the defense didn't come up with any reasonable theories.
Case. That's what it comes down to.
Despite the ruling, even Judge West wrote that she is troubled by the manner in which fraud was able to be perpetuated at Promise Health.
I was stunned.
State Representative Kristen Robbins, chair of the House Fraud Prevention and State Oversight Committee, says she's now reviewing if any state laws need to be tightened.
We want to strengthen state law so that we can get prosecutions out of these cases, because clearly a jury thought he was guilty.
Jurors in the case can't believe the decision.
I am shocked. I'm shocked based off of all of the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt that we saw based off of the said evidence. It was not a difficult decision whatsoever. The deliberation took probably 4 hours at most. Based off of the state's evidence that was presented, I was beyond a reasonable doubt.
The attorney for Mr. Yusuf, Ian Burrell, sent me a statement today that says, in part, Judge West's ruling affirms what we have maintained from the beginning, that our client, Mr. Yusuf, was wrongfully accused and did not commit fraud or racketeering. The Attorney General's office filed an appeal this afternoon, so the Minnesota Court of Appeals will take a second look at this decision. Julie.
I find it difficult to believe that the Minnesota Court of Appeals is not going to look at this case and say, Judge, you got it wrong. Okay, a jury of his peers found him to be guilty based upon the evidence presented and the case presented by the state. We're going to go ahead and overturn this. Now, this is assuming that Mr. Yusuf doesn't leave the country in the meantime. I mean, $7.2 million is enough for just about anybody to start up again, especially if he goes back to someplace like Somalia. He's going to be living like a king.
So, Lou, did Mr. Tamburino, did he have any kind of emotional reaction? And this is pretty stunning. This does not happen.
Yeah, he leaned towards the idea that this was kind of a one-off and that it would have a good chance at appeal. But the worry is that there's so many other cases just like it where somebody's in the exact same position as Mr. Yusuf but is charged with fraud. And if the judge can determine that maybe they didn't know that the fraud was going on underneath them in the case, then other judges could throw it out just like this one.
All right. Do you know how quickly the Court of Appeals would take this up? Any idea?
Probably months.
All right. Thank you, Lou.
Mm-hmm.
And right there, what he said there at the end is probably the most disconcerting because we have so many cases of fraud like this, which are now coming up in the state of Minnesota. If this judge's decision is allowed to stand, then it will be used as precedent for the defense of these other individuals who were running very similar scams. Because obviously, with everything we've reported over the last several weeks, and I mean, going back months, a year or more in relation to the Feeding Our Future scam, these are not isolated. This appears to be an organized effort by Somali immigrants to come up with as many different avenues for fraud, waste, and abuse that they can possibly imagine, and then take that money and enrich themselves and send at least a portion of it back to Somalia and support terror groups like Al-Shabaab. Isle of White Privilege. I love the name, buddy. Best chat on Rumble lives right here. And let me see. Looks like there was a couple of emojis. I'm going to see what those emojis were. There we go. Right here with Zach and Lisa. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, homie. Now, here also we have a reporter for Town Hall, Dustin Grage. He was at the Minnesota State Capitol earlier today having some meetings with lawmakers and specifically talking about the fraud that is endemic throughout Minnesota, which again has one specific point of origin, which is the Somali immigrant population. Let's take a listen and see what he came to in these meetings with legislators?
Well, guys, just leaving the Capitol here now. Otherwise, just wanted to give you guys a little update and what to stay tuned for. As many of you know, there's rampant fraud coming out here in Minnesota. We're back in the news yet again. And we're working hard to actually keep this story at the forefront and not forget about it. 2026 is a whole entire year away from now. And we don't want people to forget what's actually happening today. Yesterday, we actually also had a judge overturn a jury conviction of someone who stole and fleeced $7.2 million from taxpayers through a Medicaid fraud scheme. So this isn't new. As you know, with our friend Chris Rufo, helped bring back to the forefront of this. A lot of these tax dollars are actually funding Al-Shabaab. So the members here at the House and the Senate are looking deeply into that, calling for investigations with our U.S. attorney to actually uncover the proof behind that and actually get to it. But as you all also may know, well, actually, I'm going to let you guys know this. We actually have some members of our mainstream media here locally who are letting me know that they're actually pushing their newsrooms pretty heavy to actually cover this fraud in more detail. They're kind of sick that we are being embarrassed at the national level on these stories being covered or not. So they're actually pushing their newsrooms pretty heavy on this. And quite frankly, they're just tired of being accused of being racist for simply trying to do their jobs. So that's what we're looking into right now. We're actually on our way over to the courthouse now to pick up some exhibits from one of these cases and stay tuned.
Yeah, this really should be a much bigger story than it is. I am consistently amazed at the lack of curiosity among the mainstream media. I don't know why I should be, but I am. I still anticipate at some point these people are going to pick up and start doing their job. Maybe I am just far too optimistic. All right, let's talk about peace in Europe. Ukraine announced earlier today that they have agreed to the peace deal that was proposed by the Trump administration. Over the course of the last week, it was announced that President Trump had a 28-point peace plan. He was delivering it to the Russians and to the Ukrainians. At one point, Volodymyr Zelensky had published a video to the Ukrainian people, which to me sounded like he was essentially admitting defeat, like he had no other choice than to take this deal. It appears that the deal includes the Donbass and all of the breakaway republics in the eastern portion of Ukraine remaining under the auspices of the Russian Federation. Now, a delegation for the Ukrainians has agreed with the United States on the terms of this potential peace deal that President Trump and his team have put forward. The United States Army Secretary Dan Driscoll was engaged in secret talks on Monday with the Russian delegation in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. That was following up on the talks that were had this weekend between Ukraine and the U.S. in Geneva. And, of course, the whole thing is designed to end the war, bring peace to Europe. The Ukrainians have agreed to the peace deal. Officials for the United States said there are some minor details to be sorted out, but they have agreed to a peace deal. This is very good news because we've been close on many different occasions in the past. The security chief for the United States does say that there is a positive mood going on with these talks. It's a little bit different, and that Kiev is hoping to arrange to meet between President Zelensky and President Trump here in Washington at the president's earliest convenience. A U.S. official spoke with the BBC and said that there are some minor details to sort out. I saw a quote from the Ukrainian delegation that said, "We agree to this in principle, and yes, there are some minor things that need to be ironed out." Meanwhile, the U.S. has confirmed that its officials are set to meet with Russian representatives again in Abu Dhabi after this negotiated peace between them and Ukraine. We also have, in relation to this, a tweet from President Trump a truth from President Trump, where he directs Steve Witkoff to go meet directly with Putin and with Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll, meeting with Zelensky in the hopes of finalizing this deal and getting those minor underlying issues sorted out. President Trump said, "Over the past week, my team has made tremendous progress with respect to ending the war between Russia and Ukraine, a war that would have never started if I were president. Last month, 25,000 soldiers died. The original 28-point peace plan, which was drafted by the United States, has been fine-tuned with additional input from both sides, and there are only a few remaining points of disagreement. In the hopes of finalizing this peace plan, I have directed my special envoy, Steve Witkoff, to meet with President Putin in Moscow, and at the same time, Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll will be meeting with the Ukrainians. I will be briefed on all the progress made, along with Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. I look forward to hopefully meeting with President Zelensky and President Putin soon, but only when the deal to end the war is final or in its final stages. Thank you for your attention to this very important matter. Let's all hope that peace can be accomplished as soon as possible. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. I like it that President Trump has withdrawn the ability of both the Russians and the Ukrainians from getting any FaceTime with him, unless they have come to the point where they're ready to sit down, shake hands, and say, we will stop killing each other. President Trump has a lot of stuff on his plate, and I don't think that he needs to waste his time if people are going to be jerking around like Zelensky has jerked around in the past. Now, we've had some strange responses to this peace plan. 25,000 people died last month. If 25,000 more don't have to die in the next month, that sounds like a win to me. But Don Bacon, who is a certified rhino, has admitted that he almost resigned from Congress to protest this peace plan put in place by President Trump. Now, it was first announced last week, this 28-point plan that would provide Ukraine with long-term security guarantees, access to European markets, and also reconstruction funds. Meanwhile, the agreement would also enshrine some of Russia's territorial gains and guarantee that Ukraine will never join NATO, as well as capping the size of their military at 600,000. Now, Don Bacon spoke with Axios, and he said he was appalled at the proposal, and he seriously considered giving up politics altogether. He was apparently so angry at the Trump administration and this 28-point plan to end the killing in Europe that he thought about resigning early. What a little bitch. Pardon my language. Now, the centrist foreign policy hawk, a staunch supporter of Ukraine, you can read neocon war hawk, somebody who would be much happier if death, destruction, and these illegal pipelines remained open, has already announced he will be retiring in 2027 rather than seeking another term. He dubbed the proposal the Witkoff Ukrainian Surrender Plan. Well, what the hell do you expect him to do, Don Bacon? Ukraine doesn't have any money. Ukraine doesn't even have any men that they can conscript to go to the front lines. Ukraine has been beaten into submission slowly over the course of 4 years, and if it wasn't for all of these other Western nations propping them up with military, with bodies, with weaponry, then the war would have been over a long time ago. And yes, Ukraine would have surrendered. In the end, I have a commitment to our constituents to fulfill my term, Bacon said, adding that he shared my anger with House Speaker Mike Johnson, but didn't mention resignation. Bacon is not too popular among the Republican base. He is notorious for siding with Democrats on numerous important issues. He recently killed an effort to censure New Jersey Representative LaMonica McIver because she had physically and verbally assaulted ICE agents. He's also repeatedly criticized the policies of President Trump, the greatest president of the modern age, potentially of the entire history of the United States. Back in April, he was one of the people calling for the firing of Pete Hegseth over that Signalgate bullshit. And after announcing his plans not to seek re-election, Bacon complained that the cushy life of a U.S. congressman was simply too much to handle. Some like to spin my retirement from Congress to fit their own wishes, he wrote at the time. I'm retiring from Congress in 2027 to spend more time with family and home. I don't want to do 14-hour days in D.C. 4 days a week anymore, which is what it takes to win this purple seat. 4 days a week working must be nice, Don Bacon. Now, you know who else is upset, and this one is not too surprising. Former MSDNC host Chris Matthews. He's also angry that this peace deal with Ukraine does not include U.S. troops having a permanent presence in the country. Because, of course, if U.S. troops are there, then it's another opportunity for the United States to potentially embroil themselves in another long and expensive forever war. He is more angry about the fact that President Trump is not going to put American lives at risk than he is at President Trump ending the war and saving the lives of Europeans. He's also not aware that one of President Trump's big points of appeal for the American people is that he refuses to involve the United States in foreign wars that we don't need to be involved in. It's another example of just how detached from reality these East Coast elites like Chris Matthews are. He doesn't know anything. Chris Matthews got paid to go on MSDNC from his ivory tower and repeat fake news 4 a.m. CIA talking points and complain about the wonderful work that the administration was doing. He says that NATO agrees not to station troops in Ukraine. This thing smells from the beginning. When people say, is this Russia's plan? Who else could have cooked up this plan? 600,000 troops by the Ukrainians. This is a post-Munich decision after the deal was made that Trump would be in love with. After the deal, who's going to defend Ukraine? Well, they can defend themselves if they don't step up and do stupid shit like acts of terrorism in their next door neighbor's land. And it's going to be a smaller army against a larger portion of their country taken away already. Why would they need a larger army if they're not even going to be owning that portion of the country anymore? That portion of the country that was previously being bombed, missiled, and shelled by the Western government of Kiev, because those people were daring to speak Russian. Does anybody trust Donald Trump to go to war to defend Ukraine after the deal? Whatever happens, the aggressor Russians who are set on aggression, that's what they want. That's their motive in life. That Russia's President Vladimir Putin's motive in life. Does anybody think Donald Trump will put American troops in Ukraine to defend that country or will lead NATO troops in that country? I don't see it. I don't see it either. And I am happy to say that I don't see it. Like myself and pretty much every single person I know, we grew up in the United States of America watching men and women get deployed to foreign lands, spending billions upon billions of dollars for things that had nothing to do with America. And now it's time to focus our energy, our wealth, and our power on the homeland, making this country great, making America great again, and stopping the process of engaging in forever wars, which simply exist to prop up criminal rat lines and give us an excuse to sell weaponry and keep people dying on the battlefields and black witchcraft type sacrifices. Let me say thank you to M. Shybron, who says Bacon named in Brunson case, resurfacing soon. I sure hope so. Don Bacon is not somebody that I am particularly happy about. All right, now I have an excellent clip that Ghost was able to pull up. It's a quote from Nicolas Maduro, and he's talking about the way that drug money is laundered throughout the world. He says that 85% of the cartel, the drug cartel's money, is being laundered through the U.S. banking system. Now, anybody who has followed this sort of stuff for years knows that there have been a number of big banks which are part of the legitimate banking system, which have already been found to be laundering all kinds of money from criminal enterprises, whether it's trafficking, weapons trafficking, drug trafficking. It happens all over the place. And I am not surprised if this number is 100% correct. Let's go ahead and hear this. I'm actually going to turn it down because he's speaking in Spanish, but I'll read what Maduro says. He says 85% of the billions from international drug trafficking each year is in banks in the United States. That's where the cartel is. Let them investigate and uncover it. Please, please, let's investigate and uncover it. Let's arrest every single banker, every single civil servant, every single elected official that is on the payroll of the cartel, that is profiting from the misery of drug addiction and smuggling and trafficking. Let's get all of them and let's bring them to justice. He says money laundering. Look, I was reviewing the data the vice president shared, and I believe it's over $500 billion annually. Wouldn't be surprised. That's in the U.S. banking system, in legal banks. If they want to investigate a cartel, let them investigate the cartel up north, because it's from the United States that all drug trafficking is directed, from South America to the rest of the world. They also control the opium trade, and so on, or at least they certainly did. It's the United States where the mafias are, where the real cartels are. Now, the one issue that I take with his statement there is this is not the only place where the cartels exist. Certainly, the Central Intelligence Agency is from the United States, but these cartels are operating openly in a variety of nations all around the world, and they are afforded the protection and the cover of official agencies like the Central Intelligence Agency, like the police or the border guards who are paid off. It's not a problem that exists solely in the United States. This is a global enterprise. And for me, it's an easy win. Investigate the suspicious activity reports, figure out where all of this money is coming from and who is laundering it where. Take every single one of these people down and destroy the criminal global cartels no matter where they exist. Leanne63 says, Zach, Lisa, and family have a blessed Thanksgiving. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and you as well. All right, so let's move on from Maduro's statement and instead to a statement from another public official. This time, though, we're heading on back down to New Orleans, where Operation Swamp Sweep is currently rounding up illegal aliens and criminals all throughout the greater New Orleans area. This here is New Orleans Superintendent for the Police, Ann Kirkpatrick. She claims in this statement that being in this country illegally is a civil issue, and that because it's a civil issue, the police will not enforce civil law. Well, guess what? It's a crime. It's definitely a crime. It's illegal to come to the United States illegally, and there's a lot more that plays into this than simply somebody being here when they're not legally allowed to.
Our confirmation from the judge that we are formally out of the consent decree, but along the way I have preferred to use the term that we've graduated. We have taken back our own ownership of our agency. To be in the country undocumented is civil issue. We will not enforce civil law, and so our support is to make sure they're not going to get hurt and our community is not in danger.
Well, the truth of the matter is that with a weak-minded official like New Orleans Police Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick, we don't need your help. All we need is for you to stay out of our way, because this here is the cost of allowing illegal immigrants to embed themselves in your community. An illegal alien was driving down the street in Boise, Idaho. A father and his 8-year-old daughter were walking, minding their own business. This guy hit them, and he killed the 8-year-old girl that was walking with her father. His name is Ramos Caballero. He's 39 years old, and he was driving because he got a driver's license from the sanctuary state of Oregon. So that allowed him to legally operate the vehicle that killed this young 8-year-old girl. This incident occurred on November 11th, just before 4:45 p.m., at the intersection of North Harrison Boulevard and West Ada Street. Now, this young girl, what is her name? Her last name is Garrity, but what is her first name? Maura Garrity is her name. She was a student at Washington Elementary School, and you can see she's a beautiful, innocent 8-year-old girl. She had her entire life ahead of her, and she and her father were crossing the street when this guy came driving through in a pickup truck and just hit him. He, as an illegal alien, knowing that he had likely killed an 8-year-old girl, he fled the scene. He didn't bother to render any aid to this young child. She was rushed to St. Luke's Boise Medical Center, and while she was there, she succumbed to multiple blunt force injuries, and they did everything they could to save her, but the damage was just too much for her little body. Ramos Caballero was arrested later that day He was charged with hit and run, resulting in death. And of course, thank God, he was then taken into custody by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. But it never needed to get this far. This little girl should be alive. Her father should still be able to hold his daughter, rocking her to sleep when he puts her to sleep at night. Now, according to a press release from the Department of Homeland Security, this illegal alien was given a license by the sanctuary state of Oregon. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested Ramos Caballero on November 11th, and he entered the United States illegally in September of 2015, 10 years ago. He was released into this country by the Obama administration. He never showed up for his scheduled immigration hearing, and he was ordered final removal in absentia on May 9th of 2016. Tricia McLaughlin also commented. She said 8-year-old Maura Garrity's precious life was taken by an illegal alien who should have never been in our country, let alone issued a driver's license by the sanctuary state of Oregon. Maura Garrity's classmates, teachers, friends, and our nation will carry this loss forever. We ask every American to lift this family up in prayer, and we ask God to grant them the courage as they face the hardest day a family can endure. Decades of open border policies have turned every community into a border town. These policies have deadly consequences. DHS added that it is committed to protecting American communities every day from another senseless tragedy like this taking place in any other town to any other family. Victims of illegal alien crime may receive support from the Victims of Immigration Crime Enforcement Office, and you can contact them at the number that they give. There have already been 2 scholarship funds that have been launched to honor young Maura. I hate these stories most of all. And when you hear police superintendents like that dimwit down in New Orleans or other West Coast or East Coast and even Midwestern white liberal elites talking about how, it's a civil issue. They're not hurting anybody. They just wanted to come here for a better life. Well, they may have, but we have avenues to allow people to come here for a better life. Or they'll point to Ellis Island in New York. You know, back in the day, like 2/3 of immigrants that tried to come to America were turned away because either they were indigent or they were pregnant or they had no skills. They were smart about immigration back then. They only let people into the country because they had something to offer and because they had the ability to support themselves. The United States was not in the habit of welcoming people in so that we could then have them become a burden on the tax-paying citizens or the natural-born citizens of this country. So anybody who supports illegal aliens supports the deaths, the tragic and senseless deaths of American citizens, just like young Maura. Kitsko says, Trump is cleaning up New Orleans now. Yes, Operation Swamp Sweep. New Year's Day football game, trafficking and corruption, crime, etc. Yes, all of this is happening behind the scenes, and there's no way we're going to hear about all of it. But it is happening quite often all around us. Now, we also have a update on a story that nearly 2 years ago we talked about right here. You might remember Senator Colton Moore from Georgia. Colton and an aide of his were able to go into an airport in Georgia and document the fact that the Biden administration was allowing illegal aliens to live in these airports. There was really no follow-up on this story afterwards, but a new report from the Senate and one of the oversight committees has just confirmed that the Biden administration did this all over the country, despite how dangerous it was to have these illegal aliens living inside the airports, basically doing whatever they wanted. So Colton and his staffer went into the airport, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. They said it was packed with illegal aliens. They were being guarded by active duty U.S. military personnel. And they came in, they started filming, and once they realized, the people there, that they were filming, an Army officer tried to rip the camera out of his hands. The mayor of Atlanta called Colton a liar. Governor Brian Kemp ignored him. Fake news called him extreme. But now that this bombshell Senate report has come out confirming 100% of what Colton and his people found, they've got nothing to say. Governor Kemp could have done something to stop this. He was given the evidence. He knew that it was going on. If he would have flown at any time during the Biden administration, anybody who did saw exactly what was going on. They saw that this was a real issue. But the people who chose not to do anything about it are just as guilty as the Democrats and the Democrat administration that allowed these people to come in. Let's go ahead and take a walk back through memory lane.
State senator captures new video showing migrants inside a hidden room at the Atlanta airport. Watch.
Yeah.
Transporting anybody anywhere?
Yeah, we're all getting them placed to where they need to be. Yeah, so these are just recently documented travelers getting released from ICE, getting to where they need to be.
Just something.
Getting to where they need to be, being given free trips all around the country to whatever city they might want to live in. I saw so many of these people when I was flying throughout the Biden administration. Every single time I'd go to the airport, every single time I got on a plane, there were these people packed. The entire plane would be packed to the gills.
Get a video if you don't.
Actually, you cannot get a video.
No.
You cannot get a video.
No, you're not allowed.
You're not allowed. You're done.
Did you hear that? Documented travelers joining us right.
Yeah. I'm so glad that it's being exposed, but, you know, a lot of damage has been done. A lot of people are on the hook. All right, now, thankfully, President Trump's administration is once again targeting some of these groups that Joe Biden allowed into the country. And this time we're talking about at least 200,000 so-called refugees that Joe Biden allowed into the country. These are unvetted illegal aliens that flooded into the United States during the Biden regime under the Refugee Act. We've got at least 20 million, maybe 40, maybe 50 million, maybe even a lot more than that. And the Trump administration is currently slowing down the number of refugees that they're allowing in. Refugees from South Africa are exempted from this new vetting process because those people are under attack. They're being murdered, raped, victimized in their own homes. But this immigration crackdown is specifically targeting immigrants that came in during the so-called refugee crises. But there's at least, let me see. It's in the next article. This is at least in part tens of thousands of Burmese nationals who have been living here under this temporary protected status or through this refugee program. And so President Trump is moving them back home. There has been a situation in Burma which made it perhaps untenable for a period of time for citizens of Burma to return home, but now their temporary protected status has been canceled, and so the Burmese government has stabilized, and they are helping to bring these people back. There is no longer a state of emergency, and there are ceasefires in place, so all Burmese nationals are having their TPS status canceled as of January 26th. And so all these people are going to be going back. And then we've got another 200,000 that are refugees, allegedly, from a variety of different countries. But in order to get refugee status, all you had to do was show up and say, I scared, I afraid, don't make me go back. We also have a troubling ruling from yet another left-wing judge, this time a judge that was appointed by the Clinton administration. You have seen this woman before. She has ruled on a number of Trump cases. She, this time, is temporarily halting President Trump's IRS from helping immigrations and customs enforcement from being able to use their databases to locate illegal aliens. This is U.S. District Judge Colleen Kolar-Catelli for the District of Columbia. She issued a preliminary stay injunction to prevent the IRS from handing over tax information to ICE agents that are seeking to find these illegal aliens. Plaintiffs have shown a substantial likelihood that both the IRS's implementation of the address sharing policy and its subsequent sharing of taxpayer information with ICE were unlawful under the Administrative Procedure Act, Colleen Kolar-Catelli wrote. She continued by saying, the IRS failed to recognize that it was departing from its prior policy of strict confidentiality, failed to consider the reliance interests that were engendered by its prior policy of strict confidentiality, and failed to provide a reasoned explanation for the new policy. Well, the explanation is we want to help get rid of illegal aliens, and the ones that have been filing taxes, even though they're illegal, they are likely doing all of this fraudulently and illegally, and so we want to get rid of them. So the deal, which was initially made between ICE and the IRS, was historic when they did it. It allowed the Department of Homeland Security and ICE Director Todd Lyons to submit a request to the IRS for information regarding an illegal alien who has already been ordered to be deported. IRS officials would then hand over any information they had on illegal aliens. So it's not like the IRS was just handing over reams of data where American citizens might potentially have sensitive data exposed to people who shouldn't be able to see it. The DHS and ICE were asking about specific individuals who already had final orders of deportation that had been put in. Now, the IRS deal came after officials with the former Department of Government Efficiency said they had found millions of illegal aliens on Social Security and Medicaid. Despite being a major problem for millions of Americans, we really know little about the impact of illegal immigration on identity theft. It's not until you find out that somebody has been using your Social Security number to get loans or rent an apartment or get utilities in their name, and then maybe they destroy your credit as a result. So a comprehensive investigation was published by the Immigration Reform Law Institute, and they found that there's as many as 39 million cases between 2012 and 2016. So almost a decade old, where Americans had their identities and Social Security numbers stolen by illegal aliens. Considering those numbers and the time frame, and now we are 9 years on from the most recent information, we're talking many, 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 many tens of millions of more examples of this likely happening. So this is not a decision that will stay. This is undoubtedly going to be appealed. It is just another example of the tit for tat playing out in our corrupt judicial system, where the left is protecting the criminal networks they have set up so diligently over the vast years that they have been in power. All right, now, do you guys remember the crazed Osama bin Laden looking Antifa member from Portland? You probably have seen him at all of the protests outside the ICE facility there. Well, his name is John Paul Cupp. He goes by a couple of aliases, Waleed, also Abu Nusabi, Al Amriki. He allegedly converted to Islam, and he hangs out outside the ICE facility. He's like a professional protester. Well, he's now being arrested and charged federally for threatening to kill federal agents and also to sexually assault their wives and hurt their children as well. On October 14th, Cupp yelled these threats directly at law enforcement personnel who was outside of that Portland ICE building. And he followed up with a number of videos that he published himself online on November 3rd and November 13th. He repeated his intention to target federal agents and to assault their families. So the U.S. Attorney for the District of Oregon put out an announcement saying that Cupp is a prolific producer of online content and regularly posts aggressive rhetoric, calls for war against the United States, anti-Semitic threats, and threats of violence. You've got one notable post showing Cupp holding up his middle finger with overlaid text that reads, "Allah took everything from me and knocked me on my ass to send me off the Yahya Sinwar road to socialism for Portland. I call bullshit on these revolutionary groups. Would you actually kill and die for our young people? Building that unitary mission until I flop over, my brains are on the sidewalk, or they dump me in a cell. Allahu Akbar, power to the people." And the video uses the song Bella Ciao, which is that sort of Antifa, anti-fascist Italian song, which was often used during people who were supporting the Charlie Kirk assassination, and Tyler Robinson also wrote about it as well. There was an affidavit that was published where special agents assigned to the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. Remember when I told you when Antifa was going to be labeled as a foreign terrorist organization that would give the JTTF the authority to start going after these people? That's exactly what happened. JTTF stated in mid-July they were already starting to take a look at Cup because he had posted to a Russian social media platform called VK a video of himself discussing localized resistance and using lone wolves to target the government. Specifically, when discussing a response to the possibility of National Guard troops being deployed to Portland, Cup said a combination of mass political work hand in hand with fringe elements willing to engage in armed struggle, looking at places where the federal center is weak, getting the lowest hanging fruit from guerrilla actions, small member groups, less than 5, lone wolves are the best, 2 to 5 people you immediately know, willing to go and engage the low-hanging fruit and pop them and give them body bags. That is not too low-key. Based on my familiarity with this investigation and knowledge of Cup, I believe Cup is advocating for using lone wolves to target and kill members of the federal government, including troops, the affidavit said. In April of 2025, a judge in Clackamas County signed a restraining order prohibiting him from contacting his wife or 3 children. The terms of the restraining order do not permit Cup to have a firearm. In the paperwork pertaining to that order, his wife claimed Cup had bipolar disorder. She also alleged he told her he would kill her and then go out and harm the community and until he was taken down by police unless she reconciled with him. At some point during this time frame, Cup left the family's residence and began sleeping on the streets in downtown Portland. The Portland ICE facility has been a flashpoint for riots since June, with daily protests every single day and every single night, and threats of violence against the brave members of law enforcement and their families will not be tolerated, the U.S. attorney said. I am in full favor of this man spending the rest of his life in prison. Probably needs to go to a mental hospital. We'll go ahead and see. But he made his first federal court appearance on Monday, and he is ordered to remain in detention through additional court proceedings. All right. Now, here, President Trump, earlier today, speaking at the White House after the pardoning of the turkeys, had some choice words for Governor J.B. Pritzker. He refuses to talk about J.B. Pritzker being a fat slob.
And I had a little bit of a Pritzker joke. I was going to talk about Pritzker in size, but when I talk about Pritzker, I get angry because he's not letting us do the job. So I'm not going to tell my Pritzker joke. They have a very cute little joke, you know. Some speechwriter wrote some joke about his weight, but I would never want to talk about his weight. I don't talk about people being fat. I refuse to talk about the fact that he's a fat slob. I don't mention it. On a more serious note, as we gather around the dinner table, I'd like to lose a few pounds too, by the way. And I'm not going to lose it on Thanksgiving, I can tell you that. Because I'm going to have a turkey, but it's not going to be that one. And I have...
Oh, my gosh. Absolutely love it. President Trump is so savage. All right, we also have an update on the Campbell Soup saga, this time not in relation to their bioengineered meats, but apparently there is thousands of Clean Water Act violations that Campbell's is facing at the same time they're getting exposed for allegedly using bioengineered meats and producing crappy food for poor people, as their vice president said. Take a listen.
Campbell Soup is admitting to thousands of Clean Water Act violations at its Napoleon plant. Court filings show the company illegally dumped pollutants like phosphorus and E. coli into the Maumee River more than 5,400 times since 2018. Wow. Environmental groups say that fueled toxic algal blooms in Lake Erie. And now a trial next year will decide penalties and how Campbell has to fix the problem. Campbell responded to the report saying in part, quote, "We have taken a number of steps to improve our operations and comply with environmental regulations. We have been part of the Napoleon community since 1938, and our goal is to reach a settlement that serves the interest of the environment and the community where our employees live and work." At Campbell's.
Well, they are failing at both. We're going to go ahead and end it there because all the other stories I have are related to global affairs, and Lisa and the kids are here, so I want to make sure that I get out there and spend some time with them. One final message from our friends over here on Rumble, and that's going to be 1775 coffee. You guys, If you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, I'm going to be honest. What is the deal? Why wouldn't you try 1775 coffee? You got to try it. Now is your shot because they still have some of those starter kits available. In that starter kit, you're going to get their bold, dark roast. It's thick, it's rich, it's flavorful. You're also going to get their smooth, medium roast, perfect for an eye-opener in the morning, and their Vitality Mushroom Coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All of it is made from the highest quality beans you can get. Small batch, single origin, toxin and mold free. Plus, you're going to get a couple of goodies. You're going to get their gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A very strong frother to stir up your coffee and maybe even your mother-in-law's opinions over Thanksgiving. And you're also going to get a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, and it's all yours for just $99. This is for every single person out there who's been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wonder if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. So go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Get yourself a package for the holidays of bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. You can also use the QR code on screen or the link that you see in the chat as well. I want to thank every single one of you for hanging out with us today. Thank you very much. We're going to go through the final thank yous over here on Pilled. Let's see, where do I begin? Every time Sean Joe dumps a whole bunch of cookies in a row, I never know where to begin. Let's just say thank you to Sean Joe for a whole bunch of cookies. Thank you to Filter Dog, who says, but Lady Graham want war to continue? I am certain that Ladybug Graham wants the war to continue. Boys Blanc 89, thank you for the cookies. Sean Joe, thank you for the can. And Filter Dog, who says, enjoy your Thanksgiving with family and come back rested. I guarantee you I will. You guys, if you do also continue wanting to support the channel, there are a couple of other ways. You can find the links to those options in the description of this video. But in short, that would be my friends over here at mypillow.com, where when you use code RP78, you can save up to 80% off. Mike Lindell has a big Black Friday sale that is going on right now, so you're going to save even more than you would otherwise. Of course, my friends over at Real Rife Technology, when you use code REDPILL78, you'll save 15% off any of their electromedicine products. Also, over at ConsciousStrength.net, my good friend Jordan Sather, use code REDPILL78 to save 10% off of everything they offer. I use the Shilajit gummies every single day. Got the green energy that I use as well. Also, the oregano oil. Anytime I start to feel like I'm coming down with a cold, I'll take that. Methylene Blue, use that every single day. Keeps my mind sharp. And, of course, my friends over at My Patriot Supply, they have a pre-Black Friday sale going on right now. Prepare with redpill78.com. You can literally save on every single thing that they offer. If you're looking for survival food, or maybe you're looking for an indoor space heater, or solar panels, a solar battery, a solar generator, or a whole bunch of other things, head on over to preparewithredpill78.com. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving with yourself, your family, your loved ones, your neighbors. And I'll just go ahead and say right now that I will see you right here Friday at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Happy Thanksgiving, good luck, and God bless. We'll see you then.